Okay, we'll get started then. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully it's sunny where you are. It certainly is where I am in Warwick. Today's session, transform your business with the Microsoft Power Platform. I'm going to take you through what the platform is, how it can benefit your business as a development tool and for digital transformation. Take you through some of those tools and how they work and what you can achieve with them. Give you some real world scenarios and some success stories that are available on the Microsoft website if you want more details. If not, reach out to me. And then hopefully open up to Q&A. The chat is open. I can see people are posting in there. Thank you. There is a Q&A button at the top, which we'll probably use if you have any questions. Dump them in there now. I will try and pick them up as I go along, but there is a section at the end to talk about it. So without further ado, let's hope slide is going to work today. So today's agenda, I'm going to do a quick introduction about GreenSparks and who I am, then give you a high-level overview of the Power Platform itself, what makes up the Power Platform, why is it called a platform. I will take you through 4 of the key tools, not all of them, but just perhaps the more prominent ones that would have the most interest to yourselves. The benefits of custom apps, we're going to talk about the workflows from Power Automate, decision making with analytics and reporting, and probably very popular right now is AI agents using Copilot Studio. Quickly run through some success stories from some big brand names you'll recognize, and then, like I said, I'll finish up with a Q&A. And now it's stopped moving. Let's try that. Who is GreenSparks? We are an independent software development partner specializing in Microsoft Power Platform and AI. We are based in the market town of Warwick and Warwickshire, but yeah, our reach is quite easily across the whole of the nation. It's a cloud-based environment. Our specialty, whilst it lies in those tools and platforms, also includes business applications, data engineering and analytics, and myself personally, I have a little bit of experience in machine learning and data science. So jumping ahead a little bit there, who am I? I am Simon Foote. I am a director at GreenSparks and a Power Platform consultant. I've been in software development for about 18 years now. My background is predominantly Microsoft Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. Anybody that knows those two worlds will know that they're closely related. They are virtually the same set of tools. Dynamics is more popular from CRM point of view. I've background in business intelligence, data engineering, and as I said, machine learning and data science. And my aim in my career is to help make businesses more efficient, enhance their productivity, make their operations run smoothly by using these tools. And it's through digital transformation and intelligent solutions that I get to do that. So what is Microsoft Power Platform and why is it called a platform? It's actually a suite of tools, a combination of independent tools that, when brought together, can help create robust, intelligent software solutions. So the core parts of the tooling, and we're going to cover some of these today, is Microsoft Power Apps. So they represent applications, tools that you would run on either a Windows browser or on a mobile device, such as a tablet or phone. Power Automate, which is robotic process automation or workflows, so triggering events, performing integrations, sort of that kind of business process mining type tool. Power BI, which is considerably more famous than the rest of the platform. People are familiar with it as a dashboarding and reporting tool. It is a hybrid tool in the sense that it actually lives both as part of the Power Platform, but also Microsoft Fabric, if anybody works in the data space. So it's a very popular tool that can be used independently, but it definitely lives as part of the platform when it comes to adding those sort of charts and analytics. Power Pages, which is a low-code web portal development tool. So for those that people that might want to do content management systems or simple websites without learning how to program, Power Pages comes into play, and it also allows you to create a web-facing front end of all of the other tools that we're going to talk about today. And then Copilot Studio, formerly known as the Power Virtual Agents, or what we would understand perhaps as chatbots. And that is the new flavor of AI that Microsoft is pushing out. You'll have Copilot if you're working on a Windows machine now, or you can have the app. Copilot Studio is the low-code development tool for that technology. Quickly across the bottom are some supporting features of the platform. Data connectors, now very important to mention these, and I will recap on them again. Whilst this is a Microsoft development tool, through the use of data connectors, you actually have access to tens of thousands of different tools. And they don't have to be just Microsoft, they can be third parties. So there will be connectors for things like SAP and Sage, HubSpot, Salesforce, QuickBooks, certain websites that have API access. There are connectors for, like I said, tens of thousands of third-party tools, which allows you to integrate them into what you build with Power Platform. And if there isn't, most modern software and websites have an API, application programming interface, that you can build custom connectors for. So virtually all modern software can be brought into this platform and used in it. There is AI Builder, which allows you to integrate machine learning models into the back of this platform. Note that I put in the chat, I am running another webinar that focuses on the AI tools. So if you'd like to learn more about AI Builder, 2 p.m. next Thursday. Microsoft Dataverse is the underlying database that, whilst you're not restricted to using it, it's a very powerful low-code implementation of a SQL Server database. So if you are dealing with large volumes of data and you want a more traditional relational data model, Microsoft Dataverse is the tool of choice, but you can equally use Excel, SharePoint, and other data tables and other software. It doesn't even have to be Microsoft to use as your data source. PowerFX is technically a language, but it's more akin to the formulas in Excel. So whilst this is a low-code, no-code platform, which we'll talk about in the next slide, there is the understanding that you may need to use some kind of logic programming or expression. PowerFX is the choice for the platform, but you can use ProCode if you wish to. And then lastly, managed environments. That's a new feature to the platform. It's only a couple of years old. But what Microsoft have done is created the infrastructure that this platform lives in, that you don't have to worry about if you're developing on it, and give you some extra features for free. You just turn them on. And that could be anything from integrating AI and Copilot search on your data, for creating DevOps pipelines, for managing sort of ALM, dev test live scenarios, and lots of other features that we don't cover in this. But if you'd like to learn more about that, please reach out. So this is the platform in a nutshell. All these tools can be used independently. You can just build an app, you can just build a workflow, you can just build a report, but when they really shine is when you bring them together into sort of cohesive, comprehensive solutions, because most modern technology doesn't live in isolation anymore. It integrates with other platforms. You might want to share data across your CRM and your customer service and your sales department. You might build an application for tracking data in the field, but you'll need a report to actually digest and analyze that information. You might build an internal knowledge-based tool for your departments to use, but there's a customer-facing element, so you would bring in Power Pages, that sort of thing. So part of the skill that we use at GreenSparks is that by looking at what your need is within your business, what you're trying to achieve, is we would identify which parts of the platform to bring in and design a solution around the best fit for that. So what is low code or no code? It's a relatively recent term in the scheme of technology, but perhaps not mentioned enough. Is low code is the implementation of these tool sets where you can use more intuitive, minimal coding type scenarios. So things like drag and drop interfaces or workflows, visual tools to design, and more recently using AI to understand human natural language and turn it into software. The way I like to put it is I'm a lazy developer. I do write code, I can program, and often I do when using the Power Platform, but in most cases, I don't need to. Perhaps 80–90% of the time, I can use these low-code tools to build. Now, that gives us some advantages over traditional development technology in that it's much quicker to do. Forrester have done some research on behalf of Microsoft, and when blending the Power Platform and low-code technologies with traditional development, they've estimated you save roughly 35% of your time in development. Certain aspects of the platform deliver much quicker than traditional. I'll give an example. In traditional programming, perhaps you're creating a website, you would have to think about cloud resources, infrastructure. Do I need a server that's connected to the internet? How much power and compute do I give it? How much space does it have to store my website? Who would access it? In the low code side of Microsoft, certainly in the Power Platform space, is all of that infrastructure is wrapped up in the model for you. It's even included in the licensing, so you don't have to consider it as an extra side. For example, if I wanted to build a website, within a few clicks, I could roll up an environment, I could start building my website, the infrastructure, the security, the database, the access would all already been built for me. Whereas in a traditional development environment, that would take multiple lines of code or clicks before I'd even got to the point where I'd start creating the website. What I've found personally when doing low code in isolation, so without the pro code, is more like 66% time saving. I've found on average I can create the same things in about a third of the time that it would in traditional development. Now, that's not to say that every solution can be achieved with low code, although I would say 80–90% in my experience have been more than covered by this platform. And there are some concessions you make when using this platform. And that's where you would use a consultancy or a partner like GreenSparks, is that we would find a way to leverage the tool set to its best advantages to give you that saving. So for example, you might use one of the Power Apps tools, which we'll cover on the next slide, but you have it's got a more rigid visual interface. So it depends on how important that is. And if you need that flexibility, then you can hybridize your solution and bring in some pro dev tools. There's no reason why you can't use the low code stuff in the background, because it provides you that infrastructure and database. But if you wanted a more robust and highly flexible interface for your staff to use, you could do that in pro code. So it's about finding the right balance to achieve your solution. Some other research done by Forrester or Gartner, apologies, I can't remember which one, is they found that by implementing the Power Platform itself, that on average organizations were 25% faster at their processes. Now, the way they achieve that is through a lot of automation. So we'll cover on one of the slides about Power Automate, which is a workflow tool. By giving access to your employees and your colleagues to use these tools, they can take everyday repetitive tasks or manual tasks and replace them with automation. And they found that roughly gives a 25% reduction in time spent completing those tasks. And that becomes exponential when it's repetitive. Example would be perhaps you have an inbox in your email system that picks up suggestions from staff. Now, somebody would typically have to go and read that inbox to find the suggestion and copy it into a spreadsheet or whatever tool you use. By using some of the low-code tools, you could just one time create a process that reads those emails and writes them to a spreadsheet in SharePoint for you, or sends a notification to the relevant person. Once you've built that, it will continue to run, that kind of time saving. And that's obviously a very small example. Right, we'll look at some apps. So one of the tools I mentioned was Power Apps. It's important I point out there's two flavors, if you will, of application within the platform. The first one is called Canvas Apps. Now, it's called that because you have control over the canvas, so you get to design the visual aspects of the application very tailored. So in this example is the mobile phone at the top. Typically, Canvas apps are designed for mobile devices, tablet, phone, although they will quite happily live within Microsoft Teams or on a web page. So if you're looking for that kind of custom layout, perhaps your field-based service, then Canvas apps would be the Power App deployment technology of choice. The other flavor is called model-driven apps. Now, people familiar with Dynamics 365 and CRM will probably recognize that image down the bottom. Although that's one of the apps that GreenSparks has built for managing CRMs. It's not Dynamics itself, it's the same tool stack. Now, with model-driven apps, you focus on the data structure and the processes that you apply to them. And the visual aspects and how it's deployed and how you use it is a little bit more rigid, but that gives you speed. So the menu appears on the left, it's very consistent. You have access to views, charts, forms that you can enter data in. And although it's a little small on the right-hand side, Copilot actually lives within a blade within these apps. It's now an out-of-the-box functionality. So if you've built any of the examples, CRM, customer relationship management, health and safety audit, or inventory management tools, once it's been built and like I said, you focus on that data model and the processes and how you would enter it, Copilot will live in there and you can ask it questions of your data, you can ask it to find information, you can ask it to create records within there. So that is an example of low-code implementation. Another benefit to using the model-driven is that consistent look and feel actually creates a shallower learning curve for your organization and your staff. So as you start to build more apps on this platform, it's a very familiar look and feel, having forms and views of data, that people will find it much easier to learn the next tool you build because there's that consistency. And there's quite a number of functionality, features of that tool that allows for guided user processes, which means you can onboard new staff much quicker. Right. Power Automate. So Power Automate is the workflow tool, or robotic process automation, as I mentioned earlier. It allows you to connect applications and services together and automate repetitive activities, things like data entry, file synchronization. It also has a very clever approvals process built into it, which allows you to apply these activities and workflows to certain points of data, but then seek approvals from another person. Perhaps it's your manager needs to approve your holiday, or perhaps it's a sensitive file that you need access to and somebody from your data protection team needs to approve your access and log it, that sort of thing. So examples for how you would use the workflow: appointment scheduling and reminders. Employee onboarding tasks is a great one I've seen. HR teams can build a workflow that once it's triggered, and that can be triggered by multiple ways: emails, clicking a button, a record appearing in a database. It will then follow the pattern of the workflow, and it can make requests to IT to create a user. Perhaps you have procurement by a laptop, let the hiring manager know they've got a start date and book in an initial induction. And that way you can create this process once and it will run through it. And it links very well with Microsoft itself, 365 and the Office Studio, Viva and Azure. But as I mentioned about connectors, this is where Power Automate comes in, is there's tens of thousands of different tools it can connect to. So you don't have to just live within the Microsoft ecosystem. You could have this populating your accounting system that's made by Sage. You can have it sending a notice to another department or even to another business. Perhaps you can have it approve licenses and assign them to users. And it allows you to do it through very similar to a lot of other tools out there like Make, and I'm just forgetting one of the other tools there. It allows you to route through logic, apply different switches and cases, wait for things to happen, retry if they fail. And that sort of thing, which means it's very good for doing automated responses to customers. It can respond to emails and it can log into the system. And there is also two versions of this. Power Automate is the cloud-based one, but there's something called Power Automate Desktop now, which runs locally on a machine, and it's got two advantages. It's firstly, it was designed to work with legacy software. Sadly, there are many businesses still running on technology from 15, 20 years ago that isn't cloud-based. And there's lots of good reasons why they need to do that, regulation, or perhaps they have proprietary systems. The desktop version can then be run and it will follow a user's clicks. So even if that software lacks modern interfaces that you can connect to, you can train it. But it also has another feature in there called process mining, that it will learn how users interact with that software or how they perform those functions, and will make suggestions on how to get better at it. And to the point where it can start recommending whether you move to a cloud-based tool, or it will point out you have 10 members of staff performing the same repetitive action, that here's an opportunity to improve overall efficiency. So it's more than just a drag and drop integration tool. It has quite a lot of features. It runs by itself perfectly well, but where it also shines is it integrates with Power Apps. It can trigger off the database, it can perform functions in the app. So this is another method that developers can use when creating a Power App to bring in some intelligence and make some kind of programming logic. But again, without writing any code, it's drag on a connector that says, when someone creates a record, do this action, send an email. If it's for this person, send this email, log it in a database. That kind of if this, then that kind of technology. Let's talk about Power BI. Again, it's the more famous one of the tools. Lots of people have heard of it. It is a dashboarding and reporting tool. As I mentioned before, it works very well on its own as a standalone tool. It integrates heavily with Azure and the data tools. When it comes to the Power Platform, it can live on top of all of the same data sources. And it's more than just a visual way of it looking at your data. It can give you real-time data access. It can integrate with multiple data sources. It can bring them together. You can do data modeling in it. So if you have disparate tools and data sources, everything from SharePoint, Excel, Dataverse from the Power Platform, it can bring them together. It seamlessly embeds within the Power Apps themselves, and that can be any part of the chart or the entire dashboard itself. So again, if you've got robust tools and you've created perhaps an app that a department relies on, instead of making them jump to different tabs or different parts of your systems, you can bring them together and create a more seamless approach for that. Power BI has the ability to perform predictive analytics as well. You can integrate with data science technologies or with the AI builder tools that I mentioned briefly before. So now you can take insights from the data being captured within your app and surface them. And again, like all of these low-code tools, you can integrate pro code with it. So if you have data engineers or data scientists that prefer to use their proprietary languages, Python, R, they can be embedded in this dashboard, and you can give that to somebody that doesn't understand any of what I've just said, but still accesses and reads that data, allowing you to share that kind of technology together. I find, like these other tools, it's got a very shallow learning curve. It's designed for citizen devs as well as professional developers like myself. So you don't have to be an expert in data modeling or coding to use it. Examples of the benefits were informed decision making. One thing I tell customers is if you're going to collect all of this data in your apps and store it, what are you going to do with it? It's collecting data for data's sake. So by having access to a dashboard, they call it a dashboard because it's like driving a car. You know, you can't drive a car if you don't know how fast you're going or what gear you're in. The dashboard applies the same thing to your business. So by surfacing these insights and this data allows you to make those decisions about what you do next or how you steer your company. Real-time data access, that's really important. Gone are the days when you would go and download a spreadsheet or you would share that via email, because that gives you old, dead data. It's no longer real, especially with spreadsheets where someone's copied it and created their own version. By using this dashboard that's reading that information at the time you run it, that means everybody's looking at the most up-to-date opportunity of that information. I forgot to mention that Power BI comes with a cloud implementation, so it allows you to share it with people, internal and with certain licensing external. So that again gives you all having real-time access at the same time. It's not about sharing a file in the sense that you have to go and email it or open it in a shared Dropbox. It's live, it lives there. You can also trigger alerts based on changes in data. The most common example would be a stock ticker. So if you were monitoring stock values and you wanted an alert, you can do the same thing with predictive data when it comes to your machinery. Perhaps if you have system alerts, it can post warnings to you. And then lastly, there are AI-driven queries available. One of the most powerful tools in Power BI is that it uses natural language processing to answer questions. So if you are not a business intelligence developer or analyst or a data engineer, and you don't really know how you want to visualize the data or what you're trying to find out, you can ask it questions and Copilot will create charts for you in real time based on what you're asking, looking at the data. So you could say, show me a pie chart of these categories, or you could say, show me what the highest values are of this data, and it will start to build it for you. So you don't even have to create the dashboard yourself. And there are lots of individual plugins into that. You can have maps and different visualizations. I've done some interesting things with office layouts that show real-time data from sensors. That's great for factory floor stuff. Yeah, and I mentioned collaboration and sharing. And then the last tool we're going to cover is Copilot Studio. I did mention at the beginning, but this is the chatbot itself. Copilot Studio is one of the many ways to create AI-based chatbots with Microsoft. This is the low-code interface for it. Although they are all part of the same family. Copilot Studio can either be used to modify the existing M365 Copilot, so the one that runs on your laptop, or the ones that runs within the M365 portal. So if you've got one and your staff are currently using it, but you want to add some more features to it, perhaps integrate it with some data, you can. Or you can create completely independent ones that perform certain functions. Now, there's been a massive shift in AI. We're currently celebrating Microsoft 50th anniversary, and it's the AI Skills Fest, which started 2 days ago. And so they are announcing features that I haven't had time to put on here, but some of those cool ones involve the fact that you can now communicate with other chatbots, which is rather scary to think that agents can chat to each other now. They don't even need the human into there. Previously, you could only use ChatGPT as the model underneath it. So if anybody uses ChatGPT, Copilot is using exactly the same LLM underneath. Well, recently they've added access to OpenAI and all of their tools. So if you want to use the Facebook Meta, I think it's called Llama model, you can turn that on now and use that in Copilot, and any of the OpenAI suites, any of the ChatGPT ones are available. So it gives you more flexibility on what it does. That's important if you perhaps want an AI agent that focuses on image generation, then you would use, I think it's called DALL-E is the latest model. So you can make it do all sorts of interesting things from chatbot. Another thing that's been announced via Satya Nadella, the head of Microsoft, is there is a bit of a shift away from the traditional application view of entering data in forms and views and moving more towards agentic AI, which is what we would call a chatbot. So anything you can do with the Power Platform and create those apps to create a CRM, you could now, instead of having that interface, you could have a Copilot chatbot running on your machine. And instead of typing a form, you just tell the chatbot to create it. So an example of that would be using CRM. Instead of creating a new customer record when you've got a new customer joining, the business has bought your products, tell the chatbot to create Acme Core in the system and register them as a customer, and it will go and do that. And perhaps you want to arrange a meeting with the contact, so you would just say to the chatbot, can you reach out to so-and-so at Acme Core? I'd like to book in a meeting with them next Tuesday. The chatbot will go and do that. So it's now freeing up people to spend more time doing what chatbots can't do, and that's perhaps the human touch and communicate with people. I've built some of these to work on a first line support basis, so the touch points with your customers. They're very good at researching data in a much quicker way. Very recently, I built one for Warwickshire County Council as a demonstration. If anybody's used either Warwick DC or Warwickshire County Council's websites, you will notice that they are full of lots of information, but they are very painful to navigate. Within half a day, I'd created an AI agent with Copilot Studio that if I asked it questions about my local council, such as what permit do I need for a skip, can I get a discount on my council tax, it would find it in roughly 5 to 10 seconds, which was faster than I could do searching through it. So there's a good use case for chatbots using low code. Perhaps you have a customer service team. Typically they have high churn. Typically these work in companies where they don't know everything about your products. Having a chatbot as a virtual assistant to those users can answer questions for them. So whilst they're on the phone to your customers, a chatbot could be in the background listening to what's being said or getting input from the customer service rep, and they can go and source information to perhaps solve a customer need. Another one of those is onboarding tasks. I mentioned earlier about using the workflow to do onboarding. Well, chatbots can do that as well. Having that live on a machine for a hiring manager to say, I'd like to book an interview, or a job offer's been accepted, please go and onboard this user. It can reach out and chat to them through multiple channels. I should mention it's not just living on your computer. It works on your phone, in Teams. You can have text message. You can have audio chat. It can be triggered off emails. So this onboarding process could occur doing that sort of repetitive manual tasks that you could free up the time by not doing yourself. And I mentioned the AI Skills Fest that's going on. They are using Copilot to give customized learning paths for AI. So if you're interested in learning any skills on that, but you don't know where to start, you can ask Copilot to figure out what you should study. Well, the same thing can be applied to your business. You can have an employee-based chatbot that will ask them information about their career and their development plans, and it can come up with a learning path to help guide them through your business and seek opportunities for personal and professional growth. So that's the new flavor of Copilot. And right, I'm getting through quite quickly. Right, so we can do some real world examples. I've tried to use some big names here that people might recognize. M&S, Marks and Spencer's. So they used Power Apps, and they deployed multiple, in fact, and it was too many to list on the page. And they deployed them through Microsoft Teams because that was their preferred channel for collaboration. Teams that we're using now is more than just a communication tool. It's a UCC tool, Unified Communications Collaborations. I think I can see Gareth Williams on there. He'll like that joke. And by doing so, they created access to these tools to their staff body. And there's a couple of examples I did pull out. First one was a help portal for staff. The ability to find Okay, someone still give me emitted. There we go. Somebody wanted to find help information. Off typically companies will be using SharePoint or some other large repository of knowledge, which can grow over many, many years, and policies become harder and harder to find. So they built a help portal, which was accessed through Teams, which everybody got as becoming employee, and it allowed them to self-serve that knowledge, which reduced the overload on HR departments, given the fact that they have 70,000 plus employees, or more now, I think. Another one was the People Finder. When you have that many employees within your business, and typically M&S has headquarters and regional offices all over the country, so different departments are based in different places, by having this Canvas app, which was available on people's phones, and I think that's a picture there, the People Finder, meant that you could search for who you're looking for if you're a new or existing employee but you don't quite know, and let you search departments, find them, get the contact information. So if you need help on a shop floor, you might be able to reach out and find someone for merchandising, even though they're based at the other end of the country. What they did through this approach was they noticed there was a massive improvement in their productivity, and they have invested heavily in that. It started creating more and more apps, and one that the CEO, whose name escapes me, really liked is that they created a digital suggestion box. So instead of the old-fashioned write on a post-it and drop that in, people would pick that up. They created the app version, which people could drop in notes, and the CEO could then collate them at the end of the working week. I believe he used Power BI to try and create a bit more of an informative dashboard on the sentiment and analyze them, and found it a much better way of getting that feedback loop. And then lastly, it's their product owner, Stephen Bolton, said that they now distribute their staff surveys via this app system through Teams, which means that they can now complete it on the spot using either Teams on their phone or on their laptop, whatever's more convenient for the employee, which is great in the retail space where not everybody's sat behind a desk. That allowed them to source that process deploy that process much quicker, source that information even quicker. It was less disruptive, not to mention the environmental impact of producing old-fashioned paper. And of course, that information is now stored, it can be analyzed, and they do comparisons year on year. So they allow them to make better decisions quicker, and they can then reinforce information on that. Now, I don't know if the link works if anybody clicks it, but what I will say is all these stories are directly available on Microsoft's Power Platform website. So if you want that, if you can't find them, please reach out to me. There's a lot more detail on there and some interesting data. Now it won't click over when I click the button. There we go. Virgin Money was another good example. So in this case, they used Copilot Studio, and they initially built it based on their FAQ knowledge base. Now, I mentioned that Copilot can source information from websites. It also works with SharePoint. So if you've got PDFs and Word documents in your repository, and it works with Azure Search as well, which is the new AI-based search tool. So if your data is stored in the cloud, and a few other ways, Dataverse is one of the sources, Excel. So if your information is in multiple places, another good use for Copilot is to bring them all together. Virgin Money did that, and they initially built a virtual assistant for their customer service team to help them whilst they're on the phone to customers, that example I gave before, to find information typically around policies or products they had available. It turned out to be so successful that they then reiterated over several weeks and created a customer facing one, which they then deployed to the Virgin Money website. The first thing they found out was that we minimized the handoff to real agents, because a lot of the stuff people wanted to do could be done by the chatbot. And one key information I poured out was the trained on colloquialism. So the example they gave is they taught it that if someone says, "I've moved gaff," the chatbot could understand that meant that they've changed address and they wanted to update their record, and would then ask them for the details. It would then push that into the CRM. That reduced tens of thousands of calls over the course of a year of people moving house and stuff, because a real person didn't need to deal with that. And it actually, they found, I used the example in that bottom half of the picture, is the help desk analytics. It's not for Virgin Money, but they have one. All Copilots have this dashboard that shows you the engagement rate, the drop-off rate, and they found that through minor tweaks and these kind of little quality of life things they did through colloquialisms actually increased customer satisfaction score, and they could map it directly to the dashboard. So having it understand how people talked for their regional dialects, the kind of slang they would use, "I'm moving gaff," that improved satisfaction. It reduced the need for real people to get involved, improved their efficiency. So And they still maintain this Copilot now, as I understand it. They've just built heavily on it. This information, I think, is about 12 months old, so I'd love to see what they've done with it now. And then the last example is HSBC. This one I found interesting because they deployed what's called a Citizen Development Program. Some people might know it as a Centre of Excellence, but essentially they created a hybrid environment in their workforce of citizen developers, so people who are non-technical that know their department or their business space well but are not techies, created access to the tools for them, coupled them up with IT professionals and technical developers, and created a company-wide program that allowed them to start building stuff for themselves but have access to technical people when they needed it. And it's something that I've had the privilege to do with our government. I've worked with the Foreign Office where I taught 500 of their people how to use these apps for themselves, and some of them were software developers, some of them were diplomats, and showed them the value. HSBC have applied this themselves, and they now give access to these tools so the individuals can choose when they want to automate a repetitive task, or they can collaborate together with some developers to create an app to solve a problem. And one of the tools that came out of that, they call their creative lending solution, that in the UK they designed in collaboration a tool that made it easier to understand the products that were available within HSBC, which was used as a mixture of their branches and their customer support online, their online banking. And it turned out to be so successful that by doing some very small iterations, they actually said it took a matter of days per country, but they deployed this to 11 different markets using the same technology and techniques to help their employees find better products for their customers. And then because of the way they'd approached the citizen development program, they tracked the hours that they spent doing it and estimated that that was 117,000 hours were saved by one app. And I think the last count I saw was they'd reached over 100 apps, obviously doing different things, but generally speaking, they were so enamored by the cost savings, and then they said they generated 50% cost savings because it was faster to find the information for more people within their business. So quite a large success story from the banking point of view. And because everybody loves a return on investment, they actually had a monetary value they could put against this in cost savings. So that was a good citizen program. So that's something the GreenSparks can help people with. Perhaps you want to leverage the technology more for yourself within your business. So rather than having a consultant or architect come and build something for you, we can teach you how to leverage the technology yourself and create. This is Citizen Development Program. I prefer the Centre of Excellence because I've got experience building those. So you can create these hybrid workforces that can leverage the technology for yourself. Right, I've got through that nice and quickly. So I will open up to see if there's any questions. I don't see any in the chat. I'll have a look in the Q&A section. Don't think there is. Unfortunately, I can't open up the microphones. But if anybody does have a question, I will wait a good 5 minutes to see anything else pops up. Okay, while I'm waiting for that to tick over, I'll just say what's next. So we do have access to a number of demos of actual apps, workflows in process. So if you'd like one, either reach out, it's available via the website, or email us. Please reach out and connect on LinkedIn, although I recognize a number of names on here, probably already have. And just another reminder that same time next Thursday, we're focusing on the AI tools. So there's a bit more of a deep dive in how AI development can be done through low code. So please reach out and join. Thank you, Gareth. No questions from you. That's the first, so thank you. Is the connection tool like an MCP? Oh, good question, Tom. No, it's not. No, the Power Automate, the way it works is it typically connects through APIs, so it's web-based. You build your connectors. MCP is similar in the sense that it uses API, so application programming interface protocols. application protocol. It uses the same technology. It's a great invention by Microsoft, although like I mentioned earlier, it's a little bit scary that chatbots can now use that to talk to each other. But MCP is like a standard way of integrating data with your chatbots, whereas Power Automate is a bit more traditional in the sense that it connects through APIs. So they're very similar, but I wouldn't say they were akin to each other. What I would say is you can probably use Power Automate through the MCP to talk to it. So perhaps a chatbot could request a bit of data and Power Automate can go and fetch it. Perhaps you need it to, a good example of using Power Automate is if there's a public website that has an API layer, or even you can even do this with Wikipedia. It has real data in tables on pages. That's not really nice and friendly for working with programming. Power Automate, you can create custom connectors or use the HTTP request to call that data, and now you can integrate that into the back of your app. So if there is a public, I'm thinking like weather data is a great one for that. It's typically posted publicly. You can ingest that data into your app. So if somebody works in the field and they need to know what the weather forecast is, so they know what kind of equipment to take, you'd use Power Automate to connect up and fetch that data. Now, once you've done that, you could use a chatbot to integrate with that connector and that data, but I'd say it was slightly different. Can you pull data from software such as ChemStation working in the scientific field? We currently use USBs to move data from the report system in the software to an Excel spreadsheet, which is manually typed in. Right, so there's a perfect use case for Power Apps there. Yes, ChemStation, I'm not familiar with it, but I imagine it's relatively modern. If it's been built within the last 10, 15 years, it more than likely does have some kind of API, although scientific field, it probably runs on a local machine. So there are a number of methods for getting access to that data. So those connectors that we just mentioned in Tom's question, there's different ones for accessing local data. So, and there's also something called a data gateway. So you can install a little piece of software on a local machine that communicates with whatever database the software is. That little piece of software then turns it into a connection to the internet, which means Power Platform can use it. So if you've got, let's just say ChemStation runs on a box in the corner of the room, and whilst that's got internet access, there's no way to connect to the software. This data gateway can sit on there and provide a connection to the internet, and then you can use Power Automate or Power BI, depending on it, to suck that data out in real time and then add it into other systems. So that would get rid of the USB. If you need to put it into Excel, the first thing I'd say is why are you putting it in Excel? There's probably some kind of data manipulation you need to do. So again, you could use it to feed it into Excel, or it's typically better to try and bounce a little bit further down the line and go, what do we need Excel? Maybe we just need a dashboard so we can visualize the data. That's probably what happens in it. Or something I've come across in the scientific field is you typically have to generate immutable audited reports for regulation, so proof you haven't edited the data. Again, there's some tools based in the Dataverse part of the platform that means you can track any changes and prove whether someone has basically fiddled the data. So again, by ingesting it into that, sometimes that can help you with any auditing requirements or regulations. I have worked on stuff that, and then again, dashboard on top of that. So you could cut out the whole of the USB and make the data, what's the word I'm looking for, safe in the sense that it's not been edited. All of that's encrypted as well, so it can't be hacked. Robust, thank you. Can you come next week? You could be handy for some words there. So yeah, you can make a more robust data solution that takes away the USBs. You don't lose that data. It can't be messed with. So there's lots of options there. Good, excellent questions. Thank you. I'm going to make sure I add some MCP context in next week's webinar as well. So thank you for that one, Tom. It's a very interesting topic at the moment, and it's nice to know that someone can see some similarities with Power Automate. So I'll be prepared for the next time. Okay. Oh, someone's typing. Well, no, thank you very much. So I'm going to end that there. Like I said, please reach out via the website, LinkedIn. If you've got any questions, like a deeper dive on anything, it's possible I'll run this webinar again in a few months' time because it does get some interest. I mentioned that some of those stories directly from Microsoft's website. So if you Google Microsoft Power Platform, you'll get taken to it and you can find those real life success stories. But again, reach out if you'd like me to send you the link. Yes, but thank you very much, everybody. Hope you have a great afternoon and appreciate your time this afternoon.